Lane Kiffin has scheduled a team meeting for Sunday morning in Oxford. A decision is near. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Lane Kiffin has scheduled a team meeting for 9 a.m. Sunday in Oxford, at which time he is expected to tell his team of his decision either to leave Ole Miss for Baton Rouge to become the LSU head coach or to remain with the Ole Miss football team. Neil McCready from Rebels 247 was the first to report the team meeting. Ross Dellinger and others have since followed with a similar report. Marty Smith at ESPN, who's been embedded with Ole Miss there at their facility all throughout this weekend, is there as well having it. So Lane Kiffin will meet with his team at 9 a.m., at which point an announcement will come out letting the world know what we've all been waiting to hear, what we're expecting to hear, which is that Lane Kiffin is going to be the next LSU head football coach, something that if you're an everydayer, and shout out and thank you. I know a lot of you are new to the pod amid all of this Kiffin watch drama. It's something we've said here confidently since certainly since last Friday for a good 8 or 9 days now, that everything trended very heavily in this direction, that Lane Kiffin was in fact going to be the LSU head coach. And now it seems like we've finally gotten to that decision. There's a few things I want to talk about. There's another report that Ross Dellinger had about planes leaving Baton Rouge for Oxford. I want to get to that here in a second. And also what Saturday was like and what it brought for Lane Kiffin and why this day went the way it did and transpired the way it did. So we'll get into all that. So the two bits of newsworthy information, though, the report from Neil about the 9 a.m. team meeting with the announcement to follow, and then also the report from Ross Dellinger about the planes that LSU is scheduling to send. Now, what I will tell you is that on Friday, when Ole Miss won the Egg Bowl, and there was this feeling among LSU administrators that maybe Lane Kiffin might get swept up in the emotion, they did express interest or the willingness to fly to Oxford on Saturday. It was a plane leaving Baton Rouge at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, headed to Norman, Oklahoma. And this is a plane carrying a lot of LSU dignitaries, Verge Osbury, Matt Borman, who's the head of Tiger Athletic Foundation, President Wade Roos. So several, Clay Harris, LSU's chief revenue officer. So several of the high-level administrators at LSU were flying from Baton Rouge to Norman for the game. And they were going to divert Saturday to Oxford for some FaceTime with Lane Kiffin if they felt like that was necessary. And as I understand it, they were told, no need to do that. That was a pretty good indicator on Friday evening after the Egg Bowl that Lane Kiffin was still very much aligned with LSU. Again, something that I've been hearing certainly since last Friday, the Friday before Thanksgiving, when Lane Kiffin had the meeting with the Chancellor Boyce and Keith Carter, the athletic director. And of that meeting, basically was the statement from Keith Carter that Lane Kiffin would coach the Egg Bowl and have an announcement the Saturday after. Well, this is the Saturday after. No announcement came today, but we are anticipating that announcement now on Saturday. But really, it was that Friday when the terms of the contract leaked that it is my belief that LSU and Lane Kiffin, is my understanding, had a verbal agreement at that point that he was going to be the LSU coach. And that's why this whole week was just sort of a little uneasy, because you have maybe the verbal agreement, but you don't have the binding agreement. And so what could potentially derail it? And LSU wanted to make sure that nothing did. And so whenever that plane, they were going to fly Saturday to Oxford just to get some FaceTime with Lane Kiffin if they needed it, told no worries. That plane went to to Norman, Oklahoma for the football game. It was at that point on Friday that was also told there was a plane scheduled for Sunday to go to Oxford to pick up Lane Kiffin. So now Ross Dellinger is reporting as well that LSU has 2 planes arranged to pick up Kiffin and his family. It was interesting because he said Kiffin, his family, and others. So it will be interesting to see who else is on that plane. It is worth mentioning, and I have reported here as well, that when Layla Kiffin came to Baton Rouge, the days are running together, 2 Mondays ago, it was Layla Kiffin, Angela Kiffin, and Angela Kiffin's 2 youngest children. Now, remember, Angela Kiffin is married to Chris Kiffin. That's Lane's brother, who's on the Ole Miss staff. Certainly assume that Chris Kiffin will join Lane Kiffin's staff in Baton Rouge. So perhaps it could be Lane, Layla, Knox, Landry, who, of course, is dating Whit Weeks, maybe Angela, Chris, their children. They have 4 children. Angela and Chris do. I'm speculating. I do not know the answer to that, by the way. I'm speculating. But just when you're thinking, okay, who could fill these 2 planes? Why would they need this many people? But remember also, you will have the LSU contingent. So whoever from LSU, I would assume certainly Verge Osbury, very likely Wade Roos. I would anticipate that Scott Ballard, who's the president of the LSU Board of Supervisors, would be on that plane as well. It was part of the search committee. So you think the handful of LSU dignitaries that are going to go, so you might need a little more space, perhaps why they're sending multiple planes. But that's the report from Ross Dellinger. It was initially thought that those planes were going to go Sunday morning, but now with this meeting Sunday morning, very likely the planes would be there Sunday afternoon to pick up Lane Kiffin and his family to bring them to Baton Rouge. So 9 a.m. team meeting where Lane Kiffin is expected to tell his team that he's leaving, and then subsequent, the planes will leave Baton Rouge for Oxford and bring Kiffin, his family, and others back to Baton Rouge. A timing of a introductory press conference still has not been determined. I was told weeks ago that well, again, the days and weeks run together, but I was told that Monday was the target for that introductory press conference for Lane Kiffin. So about a week ago, I guess, that Monday would be the target for a press conference to introduce Lane Kiffin. That would make sense because you are talking about Wednesday being the early signing period. So Lane Kiffin would very quickly have to work to finish recruiting this class that's planning to sign on Wednesday. So a lot of work to do in a very compressed amount of time, which is why you may say, well, why the rush? Well, this is why the rush, of course, because Wednesday being the start of the early signing period. So you want to make sure you have Lane Kiffin, as many staff members in place as possible, whoever he knows is coming to help recruit that class. Certainly leaves Ole Miss in a lurch because now not only are they preparing for the college football playoff, most likely, but also with the early signing period on Wednesday for Ole Miss, what coaches are going to be remaining on that staff? How do they keep that signing class or that commitment class together for the early signing period? Or do they? So the timing of this, as many have complained about the calendar, they're right to complain about the calendar because not only does it affect the college football playoff, it affects this signing class as well, with commitments both from LSU and from Ole Miss, potentially others. So those are all things to watch here in the coming days. But 9 a.m. team meeting, expecting that Lane Kiffin will tell his team that he's leaving for Baton Rouge. Short time later, Lane and his family will be on planes to Baton Rouge. At some point, an announcement will come formally from LSU that they've hired Lane Kiffin to be their coach. So what happened on Saturday? Why this long meeting? I'll tell you what I know here as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for hosting holidays, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Recently upgraded my outdoor patio furniture. Our bar stools outside. They're gorgeous. You can get them at Wayfair, just like we did. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December the 7th, so you still have time. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is here, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. I love the zone deals, too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So Saturday ended up being a marathon day. Ole Miss played the Egg Bowl on Friday. It's relayed. LSU thought they may need to go have some FaceTime with Lane on Saturday. That didn't happen. The meeting that was scheduled for Saturday between Lane and athletic director Keith Carter was initially thought that it was going to be held Saturday morning. Well, it kept getting bumped in large part because Lane Kiffin, as I understand, expressed interest after the Egg Bowl, and more importantly, after Texas upset Texas A&M. Lane Kiffin expressed a desire to wait another day to make his announcement. Now, ultimately, clearly, that's been granted because he wanted to wait and see the result of the Iron Bowl. Because if ultimately Auburn had won the Iron Bowl, then Ole Miss would have punched their ticket to the SEC championship game for the first time in their program's history. They would have played Georgia. And so Lane wanted to coach that game. Now, that meeting was supposed to happen Saturday morning, and then it kept getting bumped. I was then told it was going to be Saturday around lunchtime, that maybe Keith Carter had given Kiffin a noon deadline to make his announcement. And then it kept getting pushed back further, and ultimately that meeting happened at 3 o'clock at Chancellor Boyce's house. So we now know Ross Dellinger was staked out there. Actually had photos of the vehicles there at the Chancellor's house during the meeting. And that meeting ended up lasting 4 hours. Now, there's a lot of different reports that came out of that meeting that maybe it became contentious with Lane Kiffin strongly advocating his desire to coach his team through the college football playoff. Now, as we have told you here, and I think we're not the only ones reported, it's been widely reported that Ole Miss has no desire to allow Lane Kiffin to coach their team while he coaches for LSU. And I know Nick Saban said on College Game Day, that on Saturday, he feels like Lane should be allowed to coach his team. And Kirk Herbstreit maybe said the same thing as well. And I can certainly appreciate that sentiment that he's been with this team. You want to give this team the best opportunity to win. And I can appreciate that. So too can I understand Ole Miss's stance here. If Lane Kiffin accepts the LSU job, then his focus is on LSU. His focus is on recruiting for LSU. So you're going to go put and building a roster. So you're going to go put Lane Kiffin for the next month, all throughout December, with the Ole Miss football team within the Ole Miss football facility while he's the coach at LSU and coaching these players, potentially recruiting this team to LSU. And then when you take the field for the college football playoff, which some have described, I'm not from the state of Mississippi, and I'm certainly not an historian of the state of Mississippi, but some have suggested, and Lane Kiffin was even asked this in his press conference earlier this week, if that would be the greatest single event in the sporting event in the history of the state of Mississippi. Well, you have this event on your campus, provided Ole Miss is hosting in the first round, which I think they will and should. And the entirety of the game, the whole broadcast would be about Lane Kiffin coaching LSU. It effectively becomes a commercial for your conference rival, who you're going to face every year who just hired away your coach, who's standing on the sideline coaching your team before he leaves to go coach them. Put the shoe on the other foot. If LSU's coach left Baton Rouge to go coach at Alabama, would you want that person continuing to coach for the remainder of the season in the postseason? Absolutely not. There's no reality where that would be accepted. Now, some have said, well, what about like North Texas allowing Eric Morris to coach out the season before he leaves for Oklahoma State? Or maybe John Summerall at Tulane finishing out the season before, if he does in fact leave for Florida, as being reported. It's very different when you're leaving a G6 for a P4. We can all agree that it's different levels of competition. North Texas and Oklahoma State are not the same. Tulane and Florida are not the same. And you could say Ole Miss and LSU are not the same, and I could appreciate that because LSU's had more sustained success and resources and all that stuff. But they're both SEC schools with a tremendous amount of history. And Ole Miss is in the college football playoff, or will be, and LSU has not made it yet in the 12-team era. So you can throw whatever barbs or jabs you want. The bottom line is, I don't blame Ole Miss at all for not wanting Lane Kiffin to coach their team while he's coaching LSU. So he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Ole Miss has to protect themselves and their brand, and I completely understand it. So that's why a lot of that meeting got contentious, because Lane was pushing back there. There's even been some reports that potentially talks of taking players with him or opt-outs. That's been some of the reports that are out there by some of the national reporters. I can't confirm to whatever degree that might have happened, but you could understand how things could get ugly in those conversations, and maybe that's why the meeting ended up lasting 4 hours and something that was expected to be a very quick, what's your decision, move on. Now, I also believe part of that meeting was playing through the hypothetical of what they would do if Auburn had won the Iron Bowl. And based on several conversations I had with people around the Ole Miss program on Saturday, there's a strong belief that had Auburn won and Ole Miss punched its ticket to the SEC championship game for the first time, that in fact they would have let Lane Kiffin coach one more week in the SEC championship, and then after the SEC championship game, they would have promoted Joe Judge to the interim head coach job, and Kiffin would have moved on to Baton Rouge, not coaching the college football playoff. So it is my expectation that on Sunday, Lane Kiffin will meet with his team at 9 a.m., tell them that he is leaving for the LSU job, at which point there will be an announcement made that he's leaving. Ole Miss will announce that they're promoting Joe Judge to the interim head coach job, and I would assume at the same time or shortly thereafter, LSU will announce that they've hired Lane Kiffin as their new head coach. He'll come to Baton Rouge, and they'll schedule the introductory press conference, which I this is not confirmed, by the way, but I would assume, based on conversations I've had for several weeks now, would likely be Monday, which would this coming Monday, which has always kind of been the target date for an introductory press conference of the new head football coach. So the Lane Kiffin experience is something that many have described, and that LSU fans are now experiencing even before he's formally been introduced as the coach. We see the guy who's fun on Twitter, who has some barbs and jabs and trolls. But there's also a lot that goes into the Lane Kiffin experience. You get the brilliant play caller, the great offensive mind, a winning head coach, as he's proven now during his time at Ole Miss. But you're also getting this segment of Lane Kiffin, where everywhere he's been, something has followed, from being the youngest head coach in the NFL with the Raiders, to taking the Tennessee job, to leaving them after 1 year for SC, getting fired on the tarmac at SC, sort of rehabbing his image there as an analyst on Nick Saban's staff and becoming their offensive coordinator, and then being fired before the national championship game because he wasn't focused, and then going to FAU and filming those silly, come to the FAU videos that he did before taking the Ole Miss job. And then, of course, everything that's transpired there during his time at Ole Miss with Come to the SIP, the Juice Kiffin Twitter account, all of it. Lane Kiffin is a brand, and covering Lane Kiffin will be a full experience, as we say, the Lane Kiffin experience. And before he's even officially become the LSU coach, we are seeing this as what has all transpired here over the last month with Lane Kiffin. Even Saturday, Lane Kiffin sort of in his own unique way of making a plea to be able to coach the team in the SEC championship game, tweeted from the Juice Kiffin, his dog, the Juice Kiffin Twitter account, that he wanted this, the seating chart of the Georgia or Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, saying, I wonder if they'd let dogs in here. He's got his own way of doing things. It'll never be boring. And certainly the offense that we saw at LSU field on Saturday, Norman, Oklahoma, I would assume will be dramatically improved the next time we see LSU take the field, which will be in Tiger Stadium against Clemson. Well, the bowl game, but under Lane Kiffin, in Tiger Stadium against Clemson for the 2026 season opener. And I am of the belief at this point, as are many, that Lane Kiffin will be on the west sideline as the head coach of the LSU Tigers that day. But we will know it officially Sunday, shortly after 9 a.m. Central Time. And you better believe as soon as that decision comes down, we'll have a full recap and reaction to everything that transpires on Sunday. And we'll do it right here on Locked on LSU. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.